It's Wolf614 here, back at it again with the final race of our NASCAR 25 Bass Pro Shops Racing League. This is at Homestead, Miami for the second time. The first time was almost my first win, and now we come back with myself and basically an insurmountable points gap. You can see on screen coming into this, I was up 34 points or 35 points, excuse me, on NASCAR Fan, and everybody else was already out of the points hunt. But yeah, I wanted to thank every single person that's watched videos on this series. It's been 27 races. I believe I covered 26 of them. So yeah, it's been quite the ride so far. Our next season will come in about a month or so, a little bit over a month. So in the meantime, I will be doing some other stuff. If you want to know what I'm doing, make sure to hit up my Twitch. That's the top link in the description so you can see what I'm doing live. More than likely, it's going to be some Forza Horizon 6 and some MLB The Show 26 and some NASCAR stuff we'll do until then to kind of suffice that itch. But until then, we're going to hop on into this recap, get through this, and then get into some other details. It would be Smoke picking up his first ever pole position with myself to his outside on row 1. On row 2 would be Cord and NASCAR Fan. Row 3 would have TR and Brian, with row 4 being Philly and Bacon, and rounding out the field in 9th was Georgia. Before we got into this race today, we would end up doing a lap at pace speed to honor one of the fallen legends of the sport of NASCAR, Kyle Busch. As many of you know, especially watching this, Kyle Busch passed away just a week ago on Thursday, May 21st, at the time of recording this video, and a lot of the people in this league are around my age, older, Gen Z, and he was one of the drivers of our generation. He was one of the most talented individuals that I've ever gotten to see drive a race car, and I think many of us could say the same in that regard. He was a guy that many loved to hate, but I was in the camp of loving him because he was the best there was. And reading through the list of all the guys in NASCAR now that drove for KBM in the trucks and just had great things to say about him. About a third of Cup seats are guys that drove for him, and 234 wins in all 3 top series is pretty undeniable when you look at it like that. So that's all I got to say about that. I mean, he's an incredible legend, incredible person. The more you look at it, and just gone way too soon. So at the start here, we would get a pretty good jump. However, Cord would get an even better one on the bottom, and he would drag TR right over along with him on the bottom, as they would drive 1, 2, 3 into turn 1. I would get a good push from NASCAR and be able to start trying to work my way back around them. The top 5 all in a blanket. TR would go high, Cord would go high. I would be able to get by TR off the corner here as NASCAR and him got into the wall and would send them down the order for this first stage. No caution, however, whereas on lap 3, Smoke would get loose. I would get into them, barge my way 3 wide into turn number 3. Smoke would have to back out of it on the very tight base setup. Cord would get up into the wall, and we would stay close until lap 7, where he would get up into the wall, and I would be able to drive around him for the lead, almost completing the pass off of turn 2. However, I would use that good run I had to drop it down deep into turn 3. He would go way too high once again, have to get on the brakes, and I would clear off until lap 8, where we would have another silent lap for Kyle. And then on lap 19, I would come down to make my first pit stop, short pitting to get off the really bad base setup. I would get around NASCAR to unlap myself on lap 21 here, basically blow his doors off while he was trying to save fuel. And on lap 32, I would be able to get around TR, who still hadn't pit from the base setup, to take the lead in the cycle on my alternate strategy until lap 51, where I would stretch it all the way there and then pit once again. On lap 54, I would pick up the lead with NASCAR being on pit road. However, on the end of lap 54 onto 55, we would have a caution that would bring the field once again back together. This restart would go much better for me on lap 58, as I would jump away to a really good start. NASCAR would follow suit in second, and he would actually try to make a run at me into turn 3 here. You can see he goes in deep. I pull off the really good crossover move and essentially would drive away for the last 20 laps of the stage, coming across the line to win pretty comfortably for stage 1, with NASCAR in second, Philly in his first race in third, Georgia in fourth, with Brian in fifth, TR in sixth, Cord in seventh, with Smoke a lap down and Bacon, who disconnected. Stage number 2 here would be a wild one with a whole lot of incidents involved with it, but we'd hop to the start here as I believe NASCAR forgot to confirm his pit, which would cause a stack up here in turn number 1, as I would get a good run on the bottom, Brian to the high side, we're getting pushed along, Cord would send it down the bottom of 4 wide, get into NASCAR, and he would spin by himself. That would not be a caution, as he was the only one around, and we would start trying to pick up the pieces, make a run toward Cord here. As you can see, he's up into the wall. We get to the inside of him now and try, and you see the 91 get by, the 8 try to get by as well, and he would make the move. And then here on that very next part of the lap, you can see the 8 and the 91 get high. I would try to move up, not be clear of the 91. I'd get half turned as the 6 was getting half turned as well. Unfortunately, that would be Cord's race, knocked off of his intended target of strategy, as we would try to hang on to the lead. The 91 would go high, the 8 car would go low, and he would try to work on making a pass, as here comes the 1 car as well of TR. They would both get by me. For the moment, however, I would get a better run off the exit of the corner and stay side by side here up until the actual entrance of the corner, where the 1 would get up into the wall along with the 91. A big stack up here, as we would take the lead, and then that would be it coming to the line here as we race back to a caution between the 12 and the 6 car. Everybody trying to send it in deep to keep positions. However, I would maintain that lead and come to the caution. On lap 9, we'd have the restart. I had to start in the back because I ran over the choose cone. A big mistake there by myself, as we would have to start working our way through this field once again. You can see here up in front, cars spread out all over. The 12 car would get into the wall hard, would get into me, and that would cause me to slide and wreck along with TR, which would cause yet another caution there. On lap 14, we'd have a restart once again. Not a lot of people like the outside lane, so I was able to pick up some spots off of that. You can see this restart a little bit more closed in, a little bit more organized, I guess would be a better way to put it. I would run the high line to try and get a good run off the corner. The 1 would start to float up with a car underneath. I would get to the outside of Cord, the outside of 3 wide here, but it would turn into 2 as NASCAR would clear Cord. As you can see, Cord would drop it in deep. I would run it in way deep on the bottom. The 6 would get high up into the 24. He would get into him. The 91 would sling down with the 6 being turned, and everybody would stack up into that one. A big wreck to a caution as we head to the restart on lap 19 now, as the 12 would get a really bad restart, missing gears, which would really stack up us on the outside, as the inside drove right around the bottom of us. Just like every other restart, I would then hop to the inside of NASCAR in an advantageous move to try and keep spots open. However, Cord would get loose right in front of me, and I would barely touch him and cause him to spin. And then on lap 21, you can see me on the outside of NASCAR here, trying to make the move and make the pass stick to get up into second, and I would complete that pass here and then drop it right down and immediately to the bottom. TR would get into the wall on the entrance to turn 3 of that lap, and that would give me the pass for second. And then I would start trying to hunt down Smoke. He was running really good. On lap 28 here is when I would finally get to his bottom, slide up in front, and be able to make that pass. He would get too wide up into the wall, and that would be an easy clear for myself. I would run unopposed in the lead until lap 42, where I would make my first green flag pit stop of the stage. As you can see here, back out in front with guys who have stayed out longer, that's Philly and Georgia, who I would be making the passes on lap 45. And then on lap 49, I would get back around NASCAR for the lead for the moment. Until lap 63, I would run in the lead, unopposed, with not a lot going on, where I would make my final pit stop of the stage. I would clear back to the lead on lap 65 and run unopposed until lap 85, picking up my second stage win of the day, with TR in second, George in third, NASCAR in fourth. I would have lapped all the way up to fifth with Smoke, sixth was Cord, seventh was Philly, eighth was Brian, and Bacon, like we mentioned, DNF. We now head to stage number 3, where we would get a decent restart. However, to the outside, TR would also get a good jump and try to stay right alongside of us, but with that superior inside line in through the first corner of restarts, we would comfortably take the lead and be able to hold on to it for a pretty substantial amount of time here up until lap 175, where to our outside would be NASCAR fan in the 24, who had found something in the car and was finally able to avoid the chaos of the pack and run up front and challenge us to the victory here in the finale. He would have that outside covered through turns 1 and 2 here and be able to clear me for the lead for the moment, but I would not go down without a fight. On lap 188, he would hold the lead until then, where he would make a big mistake, get hard into the wall, and that would allow me back by. Hounding him was working, and I would just clear him there. As you can see, for the moment, he would try to get back underneath me here, drive it in really deep. We'd make some contact, he'd back out of it to not get me up into the wall, and I would hold on to the lead for the moment until lap 189 off of 1 and 2. He would get to my outside, barging his way through, and then he would be able to run the high line good, better than I could. However, he'd get up into the wall just a touch, and I would try to get in front, but I get loose on the bottom, and he would take back the lead until lap 191, where he would pit with a little bit of issue from a lap car, but nothing too bad. On the next lap, I would pit on lap 192, and you'll see here as I come off of pit road in just a moment that he would actually get back around me here. You can see up on the track, there he goes now, and I would have a couple seconds to make up and try and chase him down, which I would in 10 laps. I'd be right back on his rear bumper. We were both running fast laps with the fresh tires. And you can see here, I'm trying different lines to stay out of the dirty air, as it's really tough in the middle of the corners. If you're right behind someone, you're really going to struggle and often get up into the wall. You can see we're trying a whole bunch of stuff. He would check up, get really loose. I would get to the bottom of him, be able to take the lead back for the moment on lap 204 and hold on to it until lap 205, where I would just brush the wall, but it'd take a ton of momentum off me. He would barely avoid getting into the back end of me, but he'd take back the lead. However, on lap 206, we would find ourselves in meeting with a lap car and Cord. He wouldn't get into the wall. I would get into the wall with the dirty air, and that would cause me to lose touch with him for a little while until lap 209, where he would get way up into the wall, get up into it really hard, which would slow him down a ton, and I would be able to come down the inside of him and take back the lead once again, flip-flopping back and forth. You see on lap 210, he gets a better run off turn 4 and would be able to try and squeeze me up for the lead. I would force him down the track, however, forcing him to get loose and have to pick up the throttle in a weird way, which would hold my lead for the moment, as he would concede and drop back behind until lap 212.
Oh, I'm always saving fuel.
Cord, the track's up here, buddy.
Cord? Oh my God, bro.
I'm so sorry.
A big moment there, which would cause a caution. Cord just, I don't know what he was thinking, but that would cause a restart coming onto lap 217, which was right around the pit window regardless. So nothing too crazy in the grand scheme of things. It would pretty much just re-rack the field, make sure NASCAR would have a fair shot at this because we didn't want them to get knocked out of the last race like that due to the incompetence of another person. But on lap 221, I would have the lead held until I would get into the wall. Going into 3 and 4, he would get to the bottom of me, use the good tires to make a good pass for the lead. I would hold on to it to the outside. The outside lane was really good on the corner exit. I would try to do it once again. NASCAR would slide up a little bit, and a big slide. You could see him get really loose there and snap, almost get up into the wall, which could have easily ended his race, but I would clear back to the lead until 3 and 4 of lap 223, where he would get underneath me once again. We would be side by side, beating and banging, door slamming off the corner as he tried to complete this pass on the rundown to turns 1 and 2 now. I would try to hold the third line up. He would slide in front of me. However, I would undercut him there to do a big crossover, get away from the air off the car. We'd just come together and touch once again, but I wouldn't be able to clear him, and that would give him another opportunity in turns 3 and 4 to run the high line. So I had to drop it way to the bottom to try and stay away from him, try to stay away from that dirty air, as he would get back alongside of me and get back in front of me as I would have to concede the position. On lap 229, you can see he's starting to pull away more as I would start to have to run a little lower on the older tires to try and stay in touch. On lap 231, however, he would get way into the wall once again, very hard, which would lead me right back into this fight for the win. As you see again, another touch of the wall coming off the corner, making him really loose. And once again, I'm right back on the rear bumper. However, I would make the move well too early. Try to drop it down the bottom on old tires. It would not work, and he would be able to stretch his advantage once again. Until at 233, another good run off the exit of the corner. I would soar into the lead, but I wouldn't be able to slide up and clear him. I should have tried more to get up in front of him there on a slide job, but it didn't work, and he would maintain that advantage once again. On lap 239 here, though, you can see he's slow, trying a different entrance to the corner to help save the old tires. He would get loose once again in the middle of 1 and 2. Not a good spot for him, and that would allow me to take the lead until we would both pit on lap 241 coming onto lap 242. I would get out with the advantage. We would come into the lead for first and second on lap 244 here, as you can see, and he would be right on my bumper once again as we would fight to the finish of this race. You can see on lap 247 here, we're coming up on some lap cars. He would just get into my rear, get me up into the wall a little bit, which would really hinder my momentum off the exit of the corner, and he would clear back into the lead until lap 251. He would get into the wall off the exit of the corner. I would drop it down the inside to try and make the pass stick once again. Probably could have slid up in front. Unfortunately, I didn't. I waited too long to try and make that move, and he would get the good run off the exit of the corner, which would force me to drop in line once again. On lap 254, loose again in the middle of the corner. I was getting good runs on him all day long in this third stage off of turns 1 and 2. However, 3 and 4, I was not as good as he was all day. And this, once again, as you can see, my line being compromised in the middle, he would be able to work his way back around the outside of me. On lap 259, he would get into the wall just a tiny bit, but the dirty air would screw me over more than it would him, and I would get into the wall once again, and that would look like the potential end of the race until lap 263.
Oh, that time I so did. Mad. I would be too. I don't like the playoffs at all. Oh
my gosh, dude.
I told you he'd do it.
Late heartbreak once again. Another Miami race that goes by that that could be a shoulda, coulda, same way the first one was. But regardless of that, it would not matter. I would lose this battle, but eventually come home to to win the war overall, leading from week 1 of our championship all the way to the end here. NASCAR would take the win in the finale, with myself in second, Georgia in third, TR in fourth, Smoke in fifth, Philly in his first race, pretty solid showing in sixth, seventh for Brian, and eighth for Cord. So that would be all for this video. I really hope you enjoyed. I thank each and every one of you who's tuned in over the course of this season. These videos have been really fun to make. My content's been growing, the channel's been growing, so I thank everyone who's showed up. But yeah, here's the points. I would basically end up just splitting the points with NASCAR, an even wash for this race, which was good enough for me to win the championship. Wasn't needing too much. So yeah. Well, I'll have another video coming out tomorrow, going through a little bit of a more in-depth points recap with some stats, shouting out some important people that helped this league be what it is, and an outlook for this league and some more of my content to come. So with that, I'm going to let you all go. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, and until next time, take it easy.